This morning we have a number of things that are going to take place. The first event is we'll be gathered here, and we're going to have an opportunity to hear from a number of wonderful guest speakers. Students, I am excited that you are here, and I hope you can show our guests true warrior respect that they deserve. We'd like to thank all those people that have helped make this event come to pass today. There are a number of you in here that have done a great deal of behind-the-scenes work to make this happen. So thank you so much for your efforts and your time. Without further ado this morning, I would like to introduce some of our honored guests that we have. As I call your name, if you'll please stand up, and you'll have this beautiful bright light in your face as well. And turn to our crowd. First, we have Dr. Richard Nye, the Superintendent of Granite School District.
A few of them will get up to speak to you today, but all of them are here to talk about the opportunities that are available through careers and technical education in our military services. Next slide, please. Granite School District is divided into at least 8 regional high school areas that we're pretty much familiar with. Population of 395,000 Granite School District. Next slide. Our Granite School District Superintendent, Dr. Richard Nye, is going to speak to us first. Before he gets up, I just want you to take a look at those figures up there, what this district represents. Without further ado, Dr. Richard Nye, our superintendent.
Thank you, Colonel Walker. Never thought I'd see your name as a distinguished guest. So it's never lost on me, and I hope you see here, as those names were listed, how much importance is being placed in events like these, and the support that we have for Taylorsville High. That light is really bright in my eyes, so I really can't see, but can I hear from our Taylorsville High students? Where are you in the crowd? Students, you truly are distinguished guests as well, in my book. And as we put students first, we understand our responsibility as district is to prepare opportunities for you to have the different pathways that you would want to pursue for life after high school. And that's really our mission, is to prepare you for whatever post-secondary passions or pursuits that you may want to obtain and be prepared for. So as I was thinking just a couple things here. My grandparents are immigrants, and I'm pretty proud of them. A few of them had grown up, it was tough. It was tough for them. I've heard their stories. And as I think about my own experience in my path, as a first-generation college student, I had to play some new ground myself to be able to have different opportunities to serve my community. And I always appreciated those obstacles on some level, even though at the time that some of the challenges seemed daunting. It was just through perseverance that we were able to arrive in a better place and find a way to serve our community. Now, I've had a lot of family, since we have a lot of folks in uniform. First and foremost, I thank them for their service. I thank the service of those that have gone on before and those that will yet serve. As I understand, my own family, I had a grandpa that served in World War II in the Navy, an uncle in the Air Force, another uncle in the Army, and another cousin in the Marines. I never had that opportunity. It was football that got me to college, actually, and that ended up being my path. The closest I ever had was coming out of high school and into college, was I had a flat top. That was a haircut style. It was high and it was tight. And someone came up to me, and what branch of the military have usually been associated with a flat top? The Marines. And so I did. I had a gentleman come up to me and say, thank you for your service in the Marines. Because of my flat top. Because of my hairstyle. That left an impression on me. Now, of course, I had to quickly correct him and say, thank you, sir. While I am honored, I have not had that honor of serving as a Marine in our armed services. So as I consider those opportunities to serve our community, some is through the armed forces. Others is through different types of positions and community involvement, elected officials, and whatever it may be. We do our best to put our best forward to our communities. Best foot forward. So I think here's a teacher in me. I'll just use one example. My first academic love was history. Always has been. And military history at that. And American Revolutionary War history on top of that. And so it was, as in our country's history, General George Washington was working with his troops. Morale was low. There was a period between September and November where he had lost 11,000 of his troops because their service contracts had expired. They hadn't seen much success. And so he turned to the great American revolutionary pamphleteer Thomas Paine. He had written Common Sense. It was a pamphlet that really launched the American colonies into wanting to work to their independence. And so when the troops were low, General Washington recognized that by the end of December, he was going to lose the rest of his troops because their service contracts were expired. Morale was really low. So he turned to Thomas Paine again and said, we need something to boost the morale of troops. And that's where the Painful American Crisis came. And part of that reads, and I quote, These are the times that try our souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of their country. But they that stand it now deserve the love and thanks of men and women. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered. Yet we have this consolation with us, that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. What we attain to cheap, we esteem too clever. 'Tis dearness only that gives everything its value. Heaven knows how to place a proper price upon her goods, and it would be strange indeed if so celestial an article as freedom should not be violated. End quote. That was exactly what General Washington's troops needed to hear. Because on Christmas Day, they crossed the icy Delaware, they defeated the hungover Hessians, and then on January 2nd, they took British best General Cornwallis and defeated him in Jersey. And the rest is, as they say, history. And here we are today. So I would extend my thanks that even though we might be faced with those hard challenges, while we might be embroiled in different battles, both locally or in our own lives, nationally and globally, it is through that productive struggle that we become who we are and how we serve our community. Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us.
That was impressive, and part of everybody, you should memorize some piece of great quotations of scripture that are a motivation for you. That was quite impressive. Thank you. Next slide. We are honored in Taylorsville, as you saw that previous map. Taylorsville High School draws from almost the exact city limits of Taylorsville. And Christy Overson is our mayor and represents our entire area. And it's quite impressive that we do have a high school that covers almost our entire city area. Next slide. Next up will be our Congressman, Burgess Owens. A number of things about him, I can talk all day, but represents the 4th Congressional District in Utah. And all the districts are being redrawn with the 2022 redistricting, and the district lines will change a little bit. But representing us in our district, 835,000 population in the state of Utah, Congressman Burgess Owens.
Boy, oh boy. First of all, so good to come in and see so many friendly faces. Youngsters, let me just say this. You have a remarkable set of representatives here. And for someone who's come to Utah 8 years ago, I want to thank every one of you guys who is standing up and leading. This is a remarkable state. It's not by accident we're the fastest growing state in the last 10 years. And my family's an example of what draws us here, the values that you guys stand for. So thank you so much for that. Let me just real quickly give you an idea why I have so much respect for what you do. Those in uniform. My dad was a World War II vet. He and his brothers served in World War II, went to the Philippines, finished up in Japan, came back, because he grew up in Texas, to finish a postgraduate degree. And in those days of segregation, KKK, Jim Crow, they couldn't do that down south. I ran across a box of letters after it passed, of rejection letters of colleges across the country that he had been rejected from going to get their postgraduate degree. Let me tell you that the pride of that generation, the tenacity of that generation, they looked at obstacles as motivation. And he ended up getting to Ohio State where he got his PhD in agronomy, went on to become a professor for 40 years, an entrepreneur, and someone who taught the next generation, my generation, how proud we are to be Americans. There's actually a couple things that I would like to share in terms of the highlight of what that generation taught us and what we need to teach our young men and women. And it is, if I want to grow up to be a someone who's respected, who feels good about myself, who's proud of my country, it comes down to just a few things. Learn to love God, country, family, respect for women and authority. We got it made. I want to thank that generation that is now leaving us for that great legacy that we now can see here in Utah. Those tenets, love of God, country, family, respect for women and authority, is what make Utah great state it is. There's something I just want to share with you guys. It's called the 13th season. One of the things that we have to understand, particularly young people, that part of life are the obstacles, the ups and downs, and standing back up and getting through it all. I call it the 13th season. I stand before you as someone who's experienced winning a Super Bowl game. Back when the Raiders used to win football games, a lot of young people might not realize the Raiders used to win all the time in those days. I have proof, see? Anyway. But to get there, I went through a year, my last year in high school, which was a disaster. I finally got to the University of Miami because a coach decided to send a good film that I had back my junior year to university, and they thought it was the latest and greatest Burgess Owens. So they gave me a scholarship to go to the University of Miami. Played 4 years at the University of Miami. In those days, this was before they became, quote, the U, the original U. We were winning games. So for 4 years, lost at the University of Miami. Went to the Jets. And the Jets are doing then what they're doing now, which is losing all the time. So for 7 years, not one winning season. 12 years of losing. And I know, I tell you, at the end of the day, at some point, no matter how optimistic you can be, it's very easy to kind of begin to wonder, why me? Why am I the one always sitting back at home watching my teammates or my friends playing the playoff games or Super Bowl games? I'm sitting here with a losing team one more time, one more year, after doing everything I could do. Well, I had the chance to go to the Raiders, a team that basically represents what this country is all about, a team with second chances. A team where players, if they were too old, too rambunctious, too wild, too crazy, too dangerous for other NFL teams, it was just right for the Raiders. And so we got there, and that year was a remarkable season. We finally got our legs on us, we started winning. And I can remember sitting in the Super Bowl locker room against the Eagles, looking around that locker room thinking, I cannot believe I'm sitting here. I cannot believe after all these years I have a chance to sit and feel what it is to be in a locker room with winners. We went on to play that game. At the end of the day, it came out, and the only thing we regretted at the end of the day was that we had nobody else to play. That was the 13th season. That 13th season was evidence that if you hang there long enough, things begin to work out. But it was also evidence to me that the most important time of that process was the 12 previous years. Those 12 years of losing, in which I had learned some great lessons, which we all learned through obstacles. We learned about tenacity, about work ethic, about never giving up, about loyalty. All those values that really make us who we are, that we stand back and wonder, where does the real character comes from? It's not that year of the win, it's the years building up to that, and the confirmation that it's all worth it. Understand, we all have our 12 seasons. We all also have our 13th to hang there long enough to make it happen. I want to thank every single one of you guys for what you're doing. Thank you for the service. Just one last little note. My freshman year with the University of Miami, I was also an ROTC. So I was taught to be proud. And I tell you, keep that up, and our country will reward you in a big way. And we're just so thankful again for you guys, for the service you put in place, and for the love you have for our nation. So thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right, next slide, please. We're very honored today to have represented in Salt Lake County. We have 1.2 million citizens, 6 district representatives. The district representative for our district is going to speak to you next, Amy Winter-Luton, representing 200,000 residents in this county, covering this district. But most important of all, she is a THS student body officer, a graduate of 1992. Amy, please come up.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here today. So as was mentioned, I'm a Salt Lake County Council member. I'm also a former candidate for Utah governor in 2020, and I'm a mom to 4 young adults. And you might know my son, Caleb Newton. He's a senior here at Taylorsville. When I was a senior here in 1992, I served as student body vice president, as was mentioned, and I thought I knew a lot. I mean, don't seniors know everything? I want to share with you 3 things that I wish I would have known in high school. Number 1, prepare, but don't panic. I remember going to Taylorsville High and being a little stressed about what I would be when I grew up. There seemed to be tons of pressure on picking a career and figuring out what your major would be. When I graduated, first I wanted to be a school teacher, and then I wanted to be a TV news anchor, and then I wanted to be a school teacher again. When my brother and I were little, we would play commercials with our babysitter. We would pick an item out of our pantry, and then we would create a commercial to advertise the product and perform it for the sitter and our siblings. You'd think our career path would have been in advertising or product development or babysitting, but we didn't end up in any of those fields. The sky's the limit on what you want to do. I went to college and declared an elementary ed major. During my first semester of college, we went to a kindergarten class and spent half a day there, and I came home exhausted and promptly changed my major the next day. Hats off to you school teachers. I switched to public relations and graduated in that field. I've had some jobs in PR, but I've also worked as a mortgage broker, property manager, travel agent, Discovery Toys consultant, energy executive, and even a cemetery plot salesperson. And who knew that I'd eventually run for county council and governor? I've had times when I stayed home full-time as a mom, when I worked from home part-time, and times when I worked outside the home. Many students stress about what to do after high school. Make a goal to continue your education, however that looks. It might be going to college, it might be doing a certificate program or an apprenticeship. It might be to join the military and serve while getting your college paid for. Prepare yourself through education and take each opportunity as it comes. And when opportunities present themselves, don't be afraid of change. Have confidence in yourself and push yourself to succeed. Number 2, serving others is the key to happiness. Give back. You've been given a lot. Your parents have sacrificed a lot for you, your school teachers have done a lot for you, and community members have done things to help you to succeed. I wish I would have recognized sooner that it's not about me. The more we can serve other people, the happier we are. I'm especially grateful for those who have served our country. We have many men and women we owe a debt of gratitude for protecting our country, our rights, and our freedoms. Their service makes it possible for all of us to have maximum opportunities. So when you see a man or a woman in uniform today, as you'll see a lot, please go up and tell them thank you. Shortly after the birth of my second baby, I suffered from postpartum depression. Some of you might be able to relate with struggles with mental health. It was awful. Life felt overwhelming, and at times I didn't know if there was anything good about my life. I was able to see my doctor and get some medical help, but I also found that the more I got outside myself, the better I felt. When my actions were focused on other people, it became easier to forget the hard things I was dealing with. When you engage in selfless behavior, you often find yourself. Number 3, don't compare yourself with others. It's easy in high school to look at someone else and think they look better than you, that they have more money than you, that they're smarter than you. Comparing yourselves with others is a recipe for disaster and unhappiness. There will always be someone prettier, richer, and smarter. When you can accept yourself for who you are and be happy in your own skin, your life going forward will be much more fulfilling. I want to tell you a story about my Christmas tree. So several years ago, we bought this awesome artificial tree. It was beautiful, lots of lights. And it had 3 sections to it. And one year, I decided to put the tree away. Well, when I put the 3rd section, the bottom section away, I must have put the branches the wrong way and shoved them in the box, because the next year we went to get the tree out, and the 2/3 top part of the tree, the branches kind of pointed upward. They looked beautiful. But the bottom half of the tree, the branches were like one of those umbrellas that was inside out and were pointing downward. We had this big ugly space in between. It was funny because from the outside of my house, where the window was, you could only see the top 2/3, and it looked beautiful, it looked perfect. People looking in the Newton home would have thought, what a perfect Christmas tree that they have. And yet when you walked in our home, you'd see these drooping branches. I think a lot about that, on how sometimes from the outside we might look like everything's perfect, but we all have dysfunction in our lives. We all have things that we wish were different. And many times we can't see what someone else's dysfunction is. I always find it's better to give people the benefit of the doubt. Everyone is dealing with challenges. Everyone feels insecure at times. Don't compare your worst day with someone's best day on Instagram. Recognize your own strengths and weaknesses and figure out how you can be the best you. President Theodore Roosevelt said, "Comparison is the thief of joy." As you finish up your time at Taylorsville High, keep these 3 things in mind. Prepare but don't panic. Serving others is the key to happiness. And don't compare yourself to others. You are warriors. You can do hard things. I'm excited to see how wildly successful each of you will be as you continue throughout your life. And I hope you'll take advantage of all the opportunities given you. Thank you.
Next slide, please. Utah is divided into 29 districts, each district representing about 115,000 residents. You can see the cluster of districts all around Salt Lake County, stretching down to Provo. Next slide, please. We have 2 senators representing us here in Taylorsville. On the northern side, we have Senator Karen May, very interesting. She is the minority leader in our Senate, very powerful senator. And the President Pro Tem of our Senate, on the Republican side, Senator Wayne Harper, representing the northern part of our district. And Senator Harper is with us here today, one of the senior members in our state Senate, representing us on the Capitol here in Salt Lake. Senator Harper.
It's a pleasure for me to be representing the Utah State Senate here in this wonderful, wonderful activity. It is thrilling to me to look out and see so many people in uniform. It means a lot to me. And I want to thank, first of all, 2 weeks ago we had the West Chamber of Commerce, our annual awards gala. The wonderful ROTC here did the flag ceremony in such a professional, impressive way. Thank you for that. Military service is really important. It's a legacy within my family going back for generations. I don't know how many of you are really familiar with World War II, but let me share with you a personal story of why this is so important. My father served in the Army Air Corps. He was the top turret gunner and the maintenance the tech sergeant on his B-17 bomber. On his 38th mission during World War II, the tail on his B-17 was shot off. The tail gunner that was in the rear tail of that airplane went spiraling down and crashed over the fields of Czechoslovakia. My father, who was second out of the airplane, they all had to crawl down as the plane was on fire. One of the wings was partially shot off. As he got to the escape door to jump out, he realized he didn't have his parachute. Seeing the rest of his crew in that plane, he jumped out of the plane so they could survive. For some miraculous event, the ripcord, the little cable that was on the first person's parachute, wrapped around his foot, and together they went down on one parachute. He survived. He had significant injuries. But to me, that is why we do service. We do it out of love for each other. I stand totally impressed with everybody in uniform and the sacrifices that they make. I've got family members, uncles, brothers-in-laws who have served in the Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines. My father-in-law was in the military police in World War II and was part of the security detail when the armistice with Japan was signed on the battleship Missouri. He was there providing security. I had a brother-in-law who later died from his injuries as a result of items in the Vietnam War. And I've got a son-in-law right now who's currently serving in the Army Reserves. Military service is one thing that we go through and show and share how great a country the United States is and how much we all have to be grateful for. I really appreciate everyone in the service. Now let's switch over just a little bit to education. I really appreciate everything that happens and everybody who serves. Both my parents were educators and that daughter who's been an educator. It's a hard thing. But students, it's so well worth it. Let me go through and just close with this. In a number of years, we've got representatives, we've got mayors, we've got council members, we've got members of Congress. In a few years, we will not be in these seats that we have. In the future, one of you will be a mayor, one of you will be a city council member, one of you will be a member of Congress, one of you may be a governor here in the state of Utah. Education is critical to preparing what you need to do in order to be prepared for things as they change. I really want to thank everybody here, especially the teachers, students, and every member of the service. This is a great country. I love it. I appreciate each one of you, and I appreciate the opportunity I had to represent you in the Utah State Senate. Thank you so much. Do your best, and have a great day.
I don't think any of us will ever forget that parachute story. Senator Harper is here by the grace of God. Next slide. The House District, 75 House Districts, each one representing about 45,000 residents. Next slide, please. In Taylorsville, we're blessed to have 3 representatives. All 3 are here with us today. In the northernmost section, Judy Roner represents the 33rd District. Karen Kwong represents most of our district down the middle, and to include this high school in the 34th District. And Representative Jim Dunnigan represents the 39th down in the Benyon area. Representative Dunnigan is the senior of those 3, and he's going to speak to us first.
It's a pleasure to be with you here today. My son and my daughter both graduated from Taylorsville High School. My son was in madrigals, and we watched him perform on this stage many times. So it's great to be back with you. Each year, the U.S. Diplomatic Corps brings representatives from other countries, and they take them on a kind of a tour of a few cities and a few states in Utah to help, or excuse me, in the U.S. to help them see how our democracy works and our country works. And Utah's on that stop. And when they come to Utah, somehow I got on their list of they want to come and talk to me and find out how our country works and how come we have so many freedoms. So for the last many years, I've met with delegations from Eastern Europe, Africa, Europe proper, Central America, South America. And last year I met with a group from Afghanistan. We had about a dozen members of Afghanistan. It was about a year ago. And they didn't understand how we enjoyed the freedoms that we do, because they do not enjoy those same freedoms in their country. And I tried to explain, there's a couple of reasons. One is we have a constitution that gives us rights and gives us freedoms. But secondly, we have a military that ensures those freedoms. Can you imagine, with all the turmoil that's going on in the world today, if we did not have a strong military, where our country would be? I think sometimes we take for granted all the opportunities and the freedom that we have in this country. But the folks from Afghanistan, I mean, they have been through it, and this was before their country, was taken over by the Taliban. They still struggle. And other nations that I've met with, they said, well, how can you hold your high elected officials accountable if they do something wrong? I said, that's our process, that's our constitution. But I want to thank those in the armed forces. You protect our freedoms, and I mean that sincerely. Thank you. Imagine if we did not have a weak military, or if we did not have a strong military, we were weak, and we had to worry about other nations taking over and taking our freedoms away. Several months ago, when they had the airlift in Afghanistan, I got emails from two of these Afghanistanis that had visited with me, and they said, can you help us get out of Afghanistan? You know, the Taliban's taking over, we're in danger of our lives, can you help us get out? And I was heartbroken because I could not help them. But I'm grateful for our military and for the service that you provide. I want to shift just a little bit and talk about education and the importance. For the last 6 years, I've served as a volunteer in the Salt Lake County Jail. And I work with inmates. Many of them have been in the criminal justice system for many years. Others, they've only messed up one time. But what we try to do is help them create a plan so when they're released, they can get a job, they can get housing, and they can get back on their feet. And I sit down with them and I say, what type of job skills do you have? And I met with this one gentleman and he said, well, it's hard to say. I said, well, what has been your vocation the last several years? He said, well, this and that. I said, well, if we're going to fill out a resume, how would we describe what you've done? And he said, put down retail theft. And I said, we probably don't want to put that on a resume. You know, that's probably not going to help you. But it brought home to me that many of these have not had any post-high school training or education. And it's critical. So for you students here, I hope you're making plans upon your graduation if to go to college or a technical career. There are many wonderful technical careers out there. You get a skill, you get training, you can provide for your family. So I hope that you'll strongly consider that. And lastly, I want to put a shout out to the Taylorsville ROTC cadets. So each summer, our city has a festival that celebrates the founding of our city. It's called Taylorsville Days. And I chair that festival. And we rely on thousands of hours from volunteers to make that work. And each summer, at the end of June, the Taylorsville High cadets, they come and they help us with crowd control and with security, and they are so disciplined and so dependable. It's just great to see these young men and women that will come and give us a hand. So for the cadets that have helped us in the past, thank you very much. And for those of you that will help us this year, thank you and have a good day.
Next, Representative Karen Kwan, who does actually represent the physical ground we're standing on here at Taylorsville High School. Representative, please.
Good morning, it's so good to see you all here. First and foremost, I want to thank our servicemen and women. Thank you so much for your service. I have a nephew in the Navy right now, active, and I just know what a sacrifice it is for you and your families to serve. So thank you. My sister and my brother in high school, they were in JROTC, and my very first introduction to it was going to the military ball. Now, I don't know if you guys have a military ball here in Taylorsville. Oh, you do. It's so much fun. I was in 9th grade, my very first high school dance. My brother asked me to go with me. How wonderful is that? It was just so much fun. I know, it just seems like what a weird thing to go to a dance with your brother, but what a gentleman he was. And I just know that while they went, my brother and sister went ROTC, I went drill team. And so it was a little bit of the same, but a little bit different as well. I know that what my brother gained from JROTC was dedication. He learned perseverance. He learned commitment, loyalty, and he had lifelong friends. He had a ball. It was a blast. He was also in rifles. I think that you have rifles, or you did. And he was the one that started it in our high school. Just enjoyed it. And so we were able to perform together at the with marching band, he in rifles, I in drill team, and it just was such a great lifelong lesson. And it sets us up, even if you don't go to the military, which I did not, I went to college, all of these ideals, the representation, the pride, the commitment, the dedication, all of that helps as you move into college. And education is such an important thing to move forward in your career, whatever it is, whatever career it is that you decide to go into. Now, I decided to go into psychology, and I knew from 9th grade that I wanted to go into psychology. And some of you know where you want to go, and that's great, but some of you don't, and that's okay. This is the time in which we are developing our identities. Eric Erickson said that during adolescence is when we are becoming identity achieved. So what does that mean? It means that you are searching and you will choose an identity. But we're not just one thing, right? We are several. We have multiple identities. And I'm not saying that we have multiple personalities. That's a different thing. We have identities in which we search for our career or our vocation or in other areas. And this is a very important part of our adolescence. So to search not knowing what your major is, it's okay right now. What you're going to want to do, and this is called moratorium, it's that searching that's so important. And so as I went through college, it actually, I thought that I was going to be a psychologist, and that was my path. But the universe had a different path for me, as it might be for you. And so it was the constant of education. Just keep taking classes, keep persevering, keep learning. And it's all about that curiosity that we hold. And so I teach at Salt Lake Community College, just down the street. Teaching is a wonderful profession. Let me give a shout out to our teachers who did a tremendous job during these last 2 years. I salute you. You have done so much for our students. Teaching is a great profession. Let me tell you, there's no other profession that I know of where you get summers off. You work so hard during school year and then you get summers off. That is, like, no other grown-up job does that, right? So I wanted to make sure that I touch upon that while I continue to get my master's degree in clinical psychology, which allows me to teach at Salt Lake Community College, I continue to go on to education because of that curiosity. I have a doctorate in educational leadership and policy, and who would know that I would be, that would help me in my other profession, which is a legislator. Sometimes you don't know what is going to help you in your later life. So to continue to work in education is an important thing. To have that background in education policy helped me to step into a field that I knew nothing about politics. In fact, when I was asked to run, I said no several times because I felt that's not me. I can't do that. That's the imposter theory. And it was my community, my Chinese community, that said to me, not only can you do it, but you must do it, because we've never had a Chinese American serve in Utah at this level. And so I felt that responsibility to be a representative for our community. I mean, I think that representative is to represent is the important part of what we're talking about, or that community service. And you know, all paths can lead you to where you're going, even if you don't know where you're going yet. I believe that the universe had a path for me, and I believe that all of the classes that I took led me to there. And if that is not something that you think you might be interested in pursuing, let me tell you, the easiest and the best way for community service is to vote. So I'm going to encourage you to look at your opportunities in which that you can serve. And please reach out to me or any of the other representatives. We love talking with our residents and our constituents. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. The last representative representing the very northern part of our rolling area of Tazewell High School, Representative Judy Roner, 33rd District.
Thank you. I'm one of the newest members of the House of Representatives. But when I came in here today, I saw some familiar faces. As a former school board member, I've been here many times and witnessed the ROTC program. It's nothing new to me. When I went to high school, I went to a public school. All the girls wore uniforms, but every boy had to join ROTC. Every student. So things have changed a little bit. Today when I